So it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you Barbados's ambassador in Washington, D.C. and permanent representative to the Organization of American States, His Excellency Selwin Hart, who will speak to you about the OAS dimension of our preparation for the third high-level meeting.
Good afternoon to everyone, and first of all, let me thank Madam Moderator, my very good friend. We were colleagues in the Barbados Foreign Service together, and in order to be transparent, I think it's really important for me to say that what we've done at the Organization of American States in the last few months or so is owed to a conversation that I had with Nicole. It was about late last year. In November last year, it was just about a year since my appointment as ambassador, and we discussed the work or lack thereof that the intergovernmental organs of the Organization of American States have done in order to mobilize political support on this important priority for the region. And Nicole, in her usual fashion, put me in contact with Sir Trevor Hassel and Maisha at HCC. Then I circled back with Sir George Aline and Dr. Hennis. And as a result of that, we've been able to do a lot of great things within the context of the Organization of American States to advance this regional priority. So I really just wanted to start with a very brief overview of why the title of my presentation is on mobilizing political action on NCDs within the inter-American system. And from what I've heard so far, there seems to be a lot of great work taking place at the national level, at the subnational level. You know, you guys, most of you are practitioners in the field, and you're doing a lot of excellent work on the ground. However, it appears, and I could be wrong, that there is still this absence of high-level political attention being paid to this issue. Heads of state and government are not fully engaged. Ministries of health, they know the ins and outs and they're fully engaged and they treat this as a priority. But your ministries, key ministries like finance and ministries of planning and economic development, urban planning, education are not fully on board. And therefore there is an urgency attached to mobilizing political support at home, but also political support within the broader international community. So as I said, I will focus on how we have tried in just a few short months with little effort, just simply bringing this priority issue to the attention of other member states and utilizing the strength of CARICOM as well as the comparative advantage of the intergovernmental organs of the OAS. So unfortunately, the slide is at a 90-degree angle, but what it should say, unless you stand on your head and look at it. But the primary, it really just looks at the intergovernmental organs of the Organization of American States. And the General Assembly, which meets at least once a year at the level of foreign minister, that's at the top of the heap. It's the premier intergovernmental body within the Organization of American States. And the General Assembly, as I said, meets once a year at the level of foreign ministers. Now, foreign ministers or foreign ministries, of which I am an Ambassador Ratcher of Jamaica is as well, we are like, we don't have responsibility. We are not a line ministry per se, but we have responsibility for coordinating and executing the foreign policy priorities of our individual countries. So we basically have a whole of government approach, or we are supposed to, everyone is supposed to feed what the national priorities are to us for us to defend and promote and protect those interests abroad. So the foreign ministers, they meet once a year. However, there are some other important intergovernmental bodies. There's the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States, which is the Council of Ambassadors that meets very frequently, at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. And we carry out the mandates from our foreign ministers, as well as provide very general and in some instances specific guidance to the General Secretariat of the work of the organization. So the nuts and bolts of the organization, the bulk of the work of the organization is carried out by the Permanent Council, which is a group of ambassadors and representatives that meets on a frequent basis to pass legislation. There's also a council that deals with development related issues. So as I said, it's a very complicated or intricate structure, but this is the structure that carries out the intergovernmental work of the Organization of American States. Now, what is the comparative advantage of the OAS? Why should we bring or discuss an issue like NCDs to the organization? Why? And for me, I see three distinct advantages. First, the OAS is a unique convener. You have every member state, every independent or sovereign member state of the Americas, with the exception of Cuba, sitting around that table. 34 sovereign member states. And what is great about the Organization of American States, or the countries in our hemisphere, is that we're very diverse. We have 2 G7 countries. We have, I think, about 5 or 6 G20 countries, US, Canada, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil. We also have fast growing emerging middle income countries like Chile, like a Costa Rica. And you also have small island developing states like the states of the Caribbean. And I've always been a believer in diversity. And diversity adds to the collective strength of an organization like like the Organization of American States. Because if we are able, despite our diversity, to find to agree on anything, right? To agree on anything, because we are very diverse countries, size, wealth, language, culture. If we're able to agree on anything, in my view, that represents a blueprint for agreement at the larger global level, like the United Nations. So I think we, as a hemisphere, we need to better leverage that diversity within our hemisphere. The second comparative advantage is that the mandate of the Organization of American States is pretty broad. It is also supposed to act as a convener of the inter-American system. So it's specialized agencies like PAHO, WHO. It also has, some relationship to the Inter-American Development Bank, although the IDB is not a specialized agency, but it has a special relationship to the IDB, and it is the one hemispheric organization that can bring the various implementing bodies of the inter-American system of the hemisphere together. IDB, can invite PAHO to a meeting, but they don't have the same legitimacy. It really has, it is about legitimacy. It is the one hemisphere organization that can not only convene, but do this with a semblance of legitimacy, sorry, made up a new word. The third is its broad mandate. It has a mandate. So the Organization of American States was founded on 4 pillars: development, human rights, democracy, and security. And the reality is, and the framers of the charter of the Organization of American States they did this over 70 years ago. It was brilliant. They recognized that these 4 pillars were mutually reinforcing and interdependent. So you cannot, democracy is not sustainable in in an environment of systemic underdevelopment or where individuals live in insecurity. You cannot achieve, individuals cannot fully enjoy their human rights if they're living in underdevelopment, where the practice of democracy is not embedded in the system, and if they're living in a period of, in an environment of insecurity. So these four essential pillars of the organization, it's a broad mandate which has its disadvantages. However, when one looks at an issue like NCDs, it cuts across all four essential pillars of the organization. So we use this argument to convince other member states of the OAS to discuss the issue of NCDs for the very first time in March this year. Of course, with the leadership and support of PAHO, Sir Trevor, who attended and spoke, Nicole, Sir George, and the many other supporters. So, okay, yes, 5 minutes. Thanks, Nicole. So we had, as I said, for the very first time, a special session. It was a joint special session of the Permanent Council, as well as the Committee for Integral Development, which is the council responsible for development-related issues. And, you know, there was a dose of skepticism from many of my colleagues when we first proposed this meeting. Dr. Hennis sat in on some of those earlier meetings. We can't say what really, you know, many of the colleagues, some of the concerns they had, but some said, you know, this is a PAHO issue. Why we have so many difficult political issues before us as a hemisphere, why should we be dealing with this question of NCDs? Some indicated, you know, it's too soon, let's wait until after the high-level meeting in New York. However, we found common cause with many delegations like Chile, Uruguay, etc. And that is the beauty of an organization like the OAS, where, you know, one small country like Barbados, 300,000 people on a good day, can find common cause with many of the larger countries of the hemisphere. We had, at that special session, we had interventions from about 20 member states. 2/3 of the members of the Organization of American States took the floor and expressed their support, not only for the initiative, but also for ongoing work by the intergovernmental organs of the OAS on this important issue. I know I have a few minutes left, Nicole. So we clearly define a set of objectives for this session. Because in my view, if you're going to mobilize political actors, you must clearly define what the objective of the session is, and also what are some of your, what is your definition of success? And I think that this is a conversation that we can have now, but also in the context of the next panel, that as you move towards the high-level meeting in New York, that you clearly identify what are your indicators of success. What do you want to get out of this meeting? What are some of the key acts, as we sometimes put it, that you want your prime minister, you want your head of state to deliver or to bring to New York? And what are the key things that you need to help you at the national and at the local level? What do you want out of the high-level meeting? And we clearly articulated 3 essential objectives for this special session. We saw it as the beginning. It's the first time that we were doing it, so we did not overreach. We really wanted to look at how we can initiate this dialogue among member states and some of our key partners on resource mobilization, on how to integrate the NCDs issue into national development planning, as well as the sector-specific work already underway within the context of the OAS. Because as I said, it has a broad mandate. So it already has well-developed processes around education, around agriculture, around health, around development. It also plays a leadership role in helping countries to develop national development plans and strategies. So how can we ensure that this discussion that we had would advance the incorporation and integration of NCDs in that discussion? And more importantly, we also wanted to set the stage, right? We saw this as an important political milestone in terms of setting the stage towards the high level meeting. I'll be finished soon, Nicole. So, okay, so there were two key political outcomes that emerged. These political outcomes were not captured in a document because we felt, as I said, that it was too early for us to have a declaration or a resolution. We needed to initiate a conversation within the OAS first before we move to the next level. And these two political outcomes were so important because despite the early skepticism, delegation after delegation, 2/3 of them, 20 delegations, and ironically, less than 3 delegations from CARICOM took the floor. So you had more delegations from the Latin American and Caribbean region. Every major, put in inverted commas, in parenthesis, delegation took the floor from the US, Brazil, Canada, all the large countries took the floor in support of this initiative with specific recommendations on the way forward. And it was quite clear, 2 points of convergence and consensus, which are huge, that the issue of NCDs is not only a health or a PAHO issue, with all due respect to Dr. Haynes and our colleagues from PAHO, but that it has risen to the level of a hemispheric crisis. And it requires an urgent and coordinated whole of government, whole of economy approach. Just that one political outcome alone, or that point of convergence, has shown how important it was to bring this issue to the level of the Permanent Council. And as I say, one should never let momentum go to waste, right? So we decided that we would take an important next step, that we would raise the profile of this issue in the intergovernmental organs of the Organization of American States through a General Assembly resolution on NCDs. And at that session, I outlined 4 essential elements for that GA General Assembly resolution on NCDs. One would be, and it will be, a legislative mandate given to the entire Organization of American States for us to look at integrating the NCDs issue into the already ongoing sectoral work taking place within the OAS. The second is for us to look at how we can integrate NCDs prevention and control in national development planning and strategy, how we can also advance the dialogue between member states and bodies within the Inter-American system, like the Inter-American Task Force on NCDs, PAHO, ICA, IDB, on really working towards NCD prevention and control. And more importantly, we really would like to have a consensus that countries within the hemisphere will be represented at the highest political level at the upcoming UN high-level meeting. Maybe these next steps, these elements of that draft are not as ambitious as you would want, but I nevertheless think that this work that is currently being done within the intergovernmental organs of the OAS can serve as a useful milestone for further building political momentum towards New York. One of the reasons why I accepted this invitation, not only to thank Sir Trevor and to pay him back for coming to Washington, but more importantly, to hear from you about what we can do, what else we can do in terms of incorporating, messages or elements that will raise the stakes politically on this issue. Is there specific acts that we need to incorporate in the outcomes that will inform the participation of our leaders? Should we ask them, for example, to come to New York with a national development plan or a national plan or strategy on NCDs? Anything. Just tell us how we can ensure that we raise the political stakes on this issue and we mobilize that political support and action that is sorely needed to ensure that we're able to deal with this crisis of NCDs. Apologies for going over time, but thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks so much, Ambassador Hart.